lot you can do just with hammer-ons and pull-offs that can really make your guitar playing more fun and more fun to listen to. So that's a G. So that's kind of how you kind of think about the G as these three notes in the middle. Then you go to the C. So then the C's a whole other ballgame. You start thinking about these chords. So you got. So when you go to the D, you think about it the same way. So you're trying to. So you just shift it up. See how that works? Basically, you take that C. Now you're going.
So you're making the C shape over third.
I'm making the C, but I'm using the same notes. Basically, these notes, this riff here, is now shifting up to Frestigos. See that? So that's the other pattern I'm using. So if you're using a C and go. Now if you go to A, you got the same thing. So what pattern would you be using if you're going to play the A? The G or the C pattern? That's a trick question. What does anybody know? The G. Because basically you got the same, you're close to using the same strings, using the same pattern, these three things. You're going to move it up to A. So you can go. E. E. So let's everybody try that once. Play an A, major. Yeah, there you go. And then don't be afraid to incorporate that other thing that you just learned about the third. So let's say you want to do something in A that goes. How that works? So then when you get up to C, then you're all of a sudden in the other string pattern. So would we have any questions about that? No, we good? Can y'all play it? You want to play it together, or you want to practice it? I just know it's so weird to do this because I don't know if I'm going too slow or too fast.
Yes. I'm sure you are.
Yeah, well that's the deal, you know. So it's like, well,
we're running.
scales. You know, scales are really important. You know, to everything. Scales are very important to the way your melody. And to doing these riffs, you know, if you want to do some riffs in between chords, scales are what it's all about. So I highly recommend, you know, learning your scales. You know, like even if you're going to play the C or G, if you got a capo, basically C and G is about it, unless you want to play an E. You know, so you know. Basically, you know, so and that how many people know that those kinds of things like? Okay, you want to learn it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is called a, I guess you'd call this a slide and a pull-off. This is in G. So there's, let me show you one other thing first. Before we get to do that, before I was doing inverted thirds, so you got the root and the third down there. Let's do some regular thirds, which is what we covered last year. So let's go. Let's use G. So that's about the easiest way to do it. So you start here. You got G and a B, and it's the same pattern. You got 1. That's the root. And then it looks like this. So just these 2 strings, second and third string. So you got 1, same fret. So it's the same thing as this, only it's a different. Basically, when I'm doing that, those two notes are actually projecting that chord. So you have a G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, D, F sharp minor, and G. So if you were going to play those chords, it would be like. That kind of works. So, and then when you go to C, so you have that pattern. And remember what I said before about the different, you kind of work off the G pattern and you work off the C pattern. So then that would be the G pattern. So this would be the C pattern. You got a C chord. And then it's a little bit different because of the weird B string. It's only a third, so you're on. So this is what that looks like. So that would work, like let's say you're going to do something in C, so you go. Scales are really important, and using them, you know, you don't have to just play. When you're thinking about scales, people think about, you know, going da 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 da, you know, just going up the scale. Well, you don't necessarily have to start at the 1. You can start on the 5. You can start on the you know, you can start on the 3. That's what that does. That's just a little bitty piece of that scale. That's. So it's just a part of that scale. So now we're going to go back to the G thing. So you start on the G string on the A note. 2nd fret, slide it up to the 4th fret, 3rd string, and then you hit the D note, which is the 3rd fret, 2nd string, and then back down. All your changes with that one riff. Then you move it around. Then you move more. You know? So do you want to get there? How we good on that? Do you want me to go more on it? Yeah. Or are we getting? You all right? Getting confused? You okay?
I just can't really see that well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to come in the middle?
Okay,
Come on in.
thanks.
So, do we have any questions about that? Things like that. We don't really have enough time to do like a lesson thing. That's the weird thing. Is there's so many things you can cover. So I'm kind of moving. I feel like I'm moving pretty fast because I'm just going. Well, this is what you do about that. This is what you do about that. Because you can.
You're throwing stuff out there, and I'm like, oh, now I know what that's called, actually.
Yeah, they're basically double stops. They're thirds, and then they call it upside down thirds or whatever. Sometimes they call them sixths. People have different names for them. Yeah. But basically, what it is, it's an upside down third. So, one more thing. While we're talking about this G thing, because that's in the G pattern, we can do that anywhere. You can go in A. So here, it's start on the 2nd fret, but you can do it in A. So you go. It's a little harder. Basically, we're using those three that box. Do it in B. A little harder. See? It's pretty hard. That's why we have capos.
You're basically just sliding up to that next double stop and then playing those 2 strings and then sliding back down to the previous or to the prior double stop and then hitting the chord, right?
Yeah, and I'm doing the double stop.
Like you're staying.
The riff is exactly the same every time. The riff is.
As long as but every one of those, you're always like those little notes are always on the double stop, right? You're never.
Right.
You're always playing.
Well, those aren't even double stops. I'm not even playing double stops. I'm just playing notes.
That pattern, you're using that.
Yeah.
That pattern of where to guide where you're
hitting. It's the same pattern wherever you're going to go. And most of the time, we're talking about staying in G and C and A and D. So if it goes up to the C, remember when we did that C scale, the C thirds. Well, you can do this. So that changes and it goes. So you get so when you get to D, you would do the same thing. You'd go. Now it's a little bit harder. But it's the same pattern,
so
just in a different place.
Where do you start with D?
Well, where would you start a C on?
C would be.
So you start on the. Start on the 3rd, or actually on the 2nd note, like on the G. You start start on the A note. So you start on the second note of the scale. So let's see, you'd start on D. Basically, you're doing this. You're playing on these things. So you're just kind of moving it up. If you got this thing, you just move it up. It's harder. G. So if you're playing the G, or if you want to, so you can actually do that. And basically what I was just doing is I was playing the same riff on the 1 chord. I'm just going. But you can actually play now, you can actually play the riffs on every chord that you change to for a different feel. And it, so you go, say we're going to, it's easier in G, so you go. How that works? So you can actually use, and that kind of really works in blues too. When you're playing lead like blues, you can stay in the blues pattern of the 1, but you can actually venture out and actually go to the different chord changes within the solo if you're taking the solo. But you just have to watch out. That's a whole nother ballgame. But so that's a little riff you can use. Do you want to go through it, or have I shown enough of it? You okay? Practice, practice, practice.
I can't do it perfectly.
You know? Well, the thing is, once you get into it, and once you can kind of see the things that you can do, and even with hammer-ons and different patterns of hammer-ons and things, it really is fun. It's pretty amazing, and you can amuse yourself for hours, and impress your friends that way. Yes, sir.
What I meant was like this one.
That's a blues riff, yeah.
Yeah, no, but when I told you like on the A string and the D string.
Yep.
Can you explain that? Like it's a. Yeah, can you explain that?
That's basically going. That's actually kind of a blues turnaround. So, but you can do that. You can do it anywhere. You can actually. This is a weird one. Or,
Yeah.
we can go.
How do you do that? What do you do then?
Same. This is different because it's a 7. You're starting on the 7 and going chromatically down. The other one is actually going down with the scale. Or you're going chromatically down again. Just different notes out of the chord.
Where did you put your fingers on this part? When you did it. You did like 2.
And then you'll give A.
Where did you put your fingers there? Where do you get your fingers? I mean, where do you put your fingers? That is so cool.
G.
Where do you put your fingers?
That's a little trickier than what we're getting into.
That's cool though.
So basically, I'm trying to think of how I would explain that. And I think it's just it's the choice of the notes in the chord that make it look like that and make it sound so cool.
Yeah.
Because then you have Anybody interested in going there? Are we good? Do you want to learn that one? Okay, so in a G, basically you're starting on the D and it's starting on the 7. It's the 7 and the 5 notes, which are kind of odd notes to be doing it. That's why it sounds so cool. It's not real, it sounds cool because you're using these kind of weird notes, parts of the chord. Basically, it's just a chromatic down to the 5 and the 3. It's a D and a B. Everybody wants to get everybody, you Estonia when you want to go home. Basically, it's the same deal there. That's the C. So let's go ahead and try it together. And what's really fun is you can actually use 3 fingers. Have your little finger on the high G. Put your ring finger on the D below it. And then you have your middle finger on the F below it, because that's the 7. The F is the 7. So then you go. That's a little harder. That's kind of like the. Let me show you that one too real quick. So anyway, that's the G, so that's the G pattern. So if you want to move it to A, you just go up. It's a little more involved, finger-wise, And if we jump back down to the E chord, which Richard was originally talking about, that's pretty interesting. That goes like this. So you're basically taking this is a 7, this is a 5, and you're just taking that chromatically down. A lot of this is kind of knowing. It's kind of fun to know the little patterns, like these patterns. I don't even think about what notes they are really, unless I'm trying to explain it to somebody. I just know it's a cool pattern, and I know how it works with all the chords. You kind of the more you practice, you see how they relate to the chords. You know that's an E. This is an A. So learning in one key and mastering in one key is probably the ticket to learning how to do this. And then get comfortable. Like I suggest most everybody probably writes in G, right? You write in G and you play in G a lot. I do because I'm lazy. No, it's a good key. It's the people's key. And so if you can master all this stuff in the key of G, you can always capo. So after you master it in G, I would suggest going to C, because that then jumps our little pattern up from these 3 strings to these 3 strings. And the reason they're different, the reason that the guitar is all kind of weird and has a B there instead of a C, is because our fingers aren't long enough. It's like it would be more like a mandolin, where if you play a mandola and you play the chords, a lot of people have to retune the mandola because the fingering it's all linear, it's all in fifths, but it would be so far to reach the notes. They're really hard to reach the notes. That's why that B's in there. And that's why it makes it all funky. All these patterns change, all the scales change because of that. And that's what makes the guitar a little bit harder than piano and harder than mandolin or fiddle. Because of that weird switch, because you're going 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4. do we have any questions about that? No, you need some time to practice.
Like 4 years.
Oh.
Look at toddler who just got thrown in the deep end. What?
Well, I'm trying to think of other things, like, you don't necessarily have to do them when you're singing, your song. You do them in between, or you do a little turnaround, or you actually come up with a riff that is kind of cool for the song. That's how we do it. We're coming up with a signature riff, like a lick for a song on a record or something. You just kind of make something up, and you kind of think about the melody, and a lot of times, a really good practice is to have a melody, pick out a melody, and try to do it in all thirds. Whatever song, maybe it's a song of yours, and you can do the melody. Try playing it in thirds, and it'll give you a whole new understanding of how all that stuff works.
So she's saying it helps you with harmonizing too, because
It sure does.
you got those thirds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, doesn't really sound right, but that's how that all gets worked out. That's just adding another third on to just adding the 5.
Can you talk about turnarounds a little bit for some of us who are not as advanced?
A turnaround?
Yeah, are there, like I always kind of
Standard
hear the
turn-
same way of doing it. Are there some different creative ways of turning this fun around?
Oh yeah, there's some old-fashioned ones, and there's some kind of new ones. Let's say if you got that's going up to the 5. If you do a little chromatic up to that G. And then that all comes in with the walk-ups. Then you can go, of course you can go down. Or one that I really like is a really old-fashioned one. And it starts on the it's like it's one like Carolina Moon. Carolina Moon, keep shining, shine upon the one who waits for me.
Oh yeah.
That's a great turn.
Yeah.
It's kind of old-fashioned, but it's kind of cool.
How's it?
So it'd be like it's taking let's say we're in the key of we can do it in G. Let's do it in C. I'm sorry. Let's go to C. So da. So it would be the 6. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking the 6th note and chromatic and making it going to the 5 because you're going. So basically, it's the 2. It's the 6th note of the root key, but it's actually the 2nd note of the 5. Does that make sense? So either way we're dealing with an A note, because everybody knows that the 6th note of a C scale is an A. And so what we're doing is we're just taking that A and we're chromaticking it down to the G, which is the 5 chord. So you go like this. So that's all we're doing. That's kind of a cool thing, cool riff. You could use that for a riff for a song, or whatever. That's a cool way to get another cool way to get to the 5 chord. Are we good on that? Cool on that? Too fast? Too slow? Tricks as far as using different kinds of chords. I was just talking to somebody about this. By using like sharp 5s you're using a cool.
I'm so proud of that chord because that was the song I wrote without my guitar and I tried to make it. It's like
basically it's a one. It's a one diminished.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool. Play that little thing.
Oh, it's just. And it's really simple thing.
It's a very simple fingering, but and basically I would look at that. And so that what it is actually is it's actually you're playing it the way you're playing it as an A sharp diminished, which goes up. Of course, every four frets is another diminished chord. You know that? Your friends with that song. Sure, it's right now. All day. So remember that when you're playing. So anyway, what you were doing is you're actually playing an A sharp or a B flat diminished, but it is actually it's actually is if you go the 4. Oh, there it is. It's the same as an E diminished. Just it's like an inversion. So you're playing 1 diminished to 5 to 1. That's a really cool little trick you can use. And of course you can use diminished chords. You know, you can use that same chord, you know, going from a 4 to a 5 or whatever, from going to a 4. You can run it off the 1, or you can run it right off the 5 back to the 1 diminished chord. I really like the use of sharp 5s in chords. You don't use it all the time, but it's kind of a cool thing to do for when it's got that sound to it. So, and what this is, it's just kind of a cool chord. This chord. Does anybody ever play these chords? Blues chords? They call it a minor 9. Let me show you those. Real quick. You do that, Phil, don't you? You should play chords. So it's your 3rd ring finger. This is going to be a C. Across the 3rd fret, 3 strings, and then you put your 1st finger on the 2nd fret, 2nd fret, 4th string, and then your root. So that's a C. There's the root. Here's a D. So there's your E flat. So that's a sharp 5. So if you go playing a G. That's a straight chord. Here's the other bar chord. Then you can do a big Las Vegas style ending on it. That's the other way you can do it. The big Elvis ending. So just be aware of like those chords, like the sharp 5. I really like it because you can actually get to a 6 that way too. Like